Hey, good evening and welcome to this evening's meeting of the Woodbury County Zoning Commission. What are you doing over there? Today's date is July 22nd, 2024. It is 5:00 p.m. Tonight's meeting will be audio taped and minutes will be prepared. In respect to all parties, we ask those present turn off cell phones or set to vibrate. Those in attendance are asked to legibly complete the attendance sheet upon the front table. I would like to take a moment to review the procedures that the commission will follow tonight. First, the commission will handle the normal housekeeping agenda items, and for each application on the agenda, I will open the public hearing on the item. The planning and zoning staff will then present the staff report, including the staff recommendation. Any letters or other communication received from the public prior to the hearing will be entered into the record. The applicant will then have the opportunity to present his or her case and respond to staff report. Next, we will hear comments from the public. If you would like to speak either in support of or against the application, you must come to the microphone. Please first state your name and address for the record. All interested parties should be heard, but repetitious comments should be avoided. Repetitious or irrelevant comments may be ruled out of order by the chair. I ask that you remain respectful and courteous with your comments at all time. We will limit those comments to 3 minutes. After all public comments have been heard, the staff and applicant may make a closing statement. The hearing shall then be closed by motion and vote. Thereafter, no further comments from the staff, public, or applicant may be heard unless asked for by the commission. The commission shall then deliberate the case and may ask questions of the applicant, the staff, or any party offering testimony. However, such questions do not reopen the hearing for additional comments from the public unless so requested or approved by the commission. The commission will then formulate and vote on a motion. The motion will either typically grant or deny the requested application. Any commission member who has an ex parte communication to place in the record of this meeting should do so prior to the beginning of the deliberation of the respective agenda item. With that being said, the first item on the agenda is roll call. Everyone's here except for Tom Bride. Public comments on matters not on the agenda. We have anybody out there? Anybody on the phone?
No one on the phone.
No one on the phone. Okay, so I'm not seeing anybody jump up. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes for June 24th, 2024. We have any additions, deletions, corrections, or a motion?
I'd make a motion to approve the minutes from June 24th, 2024.
Okay, we have a motion. Could I get a second?
I will make a second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same size, and I abstain. I wasn't here. Okay, the next item on the agenda, item number 5, is a public hearing action item for proposed minor subdivision Sandport Addition, parcel number 8747304. Matt, I start to blur. Dan, do you want to read that information to the record, please?
Yes, the Sandra J. Heilman has filed for a 1-lot minor subdivision on the property identified as parcel number 87473040007. This subdivision is being completed to establish a lot for potential uses as a contractor yard down in the industrial area. The property is presently zoned general industrial, which allows for the construction contractor yards. This minor subdivision proposal has been properly noticed in Sioux City Journal's legal section on July 11th, 2024. The neighbors within 1,000 feet have been duly notified via July 8th, 2024 letter about this evening's zoning commission public hearing. Appropriate stakeholders, including government agencies, utilities, and organizations, have been notified and have been requested to comment. The county engineers review memo for compliance is now available. It wasn't included in the original packet. And I would like to ask the zoning commissioners to entertain a motion to receive into the record Mark Nara's review memo.
Okay, can we get a motion to accept?
I will make a motion to accept
Okay.
the letter from Mark Nara.
I need a second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the motion has been accepted, or it's been accepted.
Yes, and the county engineers attached a review memo finds the property in compliance with the closure requirements. And he made a note that there's no driveway at this time, but the property owners would need to reach out to his office to complete a driveway in the future. He found the site distance to be adequate for eligibility to get one. As noted, this property is located in the general industrial zoning district, and portions of the property are actually no longer in the floodplain. We had our floodplain maps actually take effect on July 17th, and yeah, the packet actually shows a little bit of 500-year floodplain to the west, but there is no floodplain in the footprint of this new within this property based upon the new floodplain map. So they're free and clear of that as far as this lot. The city of Salix waived their extraterritorial review authority with the approval of their resolution 2024-5. Based upon the information received and the requirements set forth in the ordinance, this proposal meets appropriate criteria for a recommendation over to the Board of Supervisors. Again, it's a pretty basic one lot subdivision. Everything appears in order.
Andrew Hallman here. Yes, do you have anything you want to add to the record on this information? Oh, sorry. Do you have anything you'd like to add? No? Okay. Okay. Commissioners? Questions, comments, motions? Closed session?
Close the public hearing.
Yeah. Motion to close the public hearing if we have no,
Motion.
we have a motion.
Motion closed.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are now in closed session. Okay, now do we have any questions or comments or
None.
none? None? Okay, I'd entertain a motion.
I'd make a motion to recommend approval of the Sandport addition final plat to the Woodbury County Board of Supervisors.
Okay, with the comments from Mark Nara taken into consideration? Okay. Okay,
Second.
I have a motion and I have a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay, that motion carried.
Yep.
Thank you. Yeah, you guys can go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Just make sure you get a hold of Mark Nara about the driveway. Yeah, well, they have paperwork and stuff. they
Yeah,
have to fill out for your-
Mark will work with them on an
Okay.
application.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, review of conditional use permit application for a data processing parcel business on parcel number 884403400009. Dan, do you want to read that information into the record?
Yes, AUR Correctionville LLC, the applicant and property owners, Ashley Farms, Ashley Acres Family Limited Partnership assigned by Tony Ashley, have filed for a conditional use permit application to place a demand resource response or a demand response load resource next to the substation in conjunction with local electric utility to support grid resiliency for the proposed use to operate a data processing business. The proposed site is on parcel number 884403400009. The parcel is located in the agricultural preservation zoning district and is not located in the floodplain. The land use summary table, section 3.034 of the Woodbury County zoning ordinance does not specifically reference data processing or this specific request by the applicant. However, this can be interpreted under 3.03.3 of the ordinance as a comparable utility use or comparable to the industrial use of research and development laboratories in the sense of data analysis. Therefore, for purposes of this request, data processing can be interpreted as a conditional use under section 3.03.3 agricultural preservation. This is very similar to one that was completed last year under the same criteria. So there's precedent for that. The staff, of course, will point out that tonight is a review session. The official public hearing will be held at the Board of Adjustment level on August 5th at 6:00 p.m. in this very room. So tonight, the zoning commission will look at the ordinance criteria and see how the criteria would be as far as preparing a type of a recommendation over to the Board of Adjustment to look at this. Going through a bit of the criteria. Of course, there is some matches of economic development goals for the county, encouragement of diversification of the county. Staff is always concerned in having things that are appropriately fit within neighborhoods and having appropriate separation distances so that future development is okay within the respective neighborhoods. So if you kind of look through criterias 1, 2, and 3, you'll see much of them point out to how they fit within the ordinance and within the neighborhood. Staff did point out that that this is kind of spaced out from many of the dwellings that are around there. One of them is about 1,100 feet or so north, kind of using the beacon search tool. The property owner who filed or signed on with this request has much of the farm ground around there. Other than potential noise, staff doesn't see any other factors that would have maybe an impact on traffic, parking, utilities, or other factors of health, safety, and welfare. Staff would recommend it based upon having a clear understanding of if there's any potential noise impact, or it's always good to have fencing or security to protect the facilities. So those are things to keep in mind. Have adequate lighting. The goal typically is to have things that can kind of coincide with the neighborhood. And this, again, like the one last year, I believe around May or June of last year, was also sited near a electrical substation. So there's a little bit of precedent based on last year. So again, I would say that property owners should consider measures to secure the property, including fencing and lighting, and efforts to mitigate any type of noise generated from the facility. So as far as that, that's all I have. And if there's members of the public here, I would encourage the commission to ask about the scope and what this is all about.
Okay. Do we have anyone here representing this application?
Yeah.
Okay, and you are? From? Okay, you want to come to the microphone, please?
You have a-
Oh, okay,
it's just going over everything about.
Sure.
So.
Yeah.
It'll be
Okay.
very informative.
Okay.
Do you have a way that you need to show you guys?
do we have to accept this?
I don't have a way. Is there a way you could email it to me now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we have to accept it?
Yeah, we would ask to, how long is your presentation? In terms of slides, like,
It's about.
okay,
They're really-
sure. If you,
guys seen this before.
Yeah.
Last year.
yeah, if you would send it to me, I would ask the board to receive it into the record as well.
Okay. Do we just do that now or wait until we get it?
Let's wait till I get the file.
Let me jump that fast. Okay.
So we'll just kind of wait for that. You have my email address handy, right? It's D, then PRIESTLEY DPRIESTLEY. And it's at Woodbury County, Iowa, spelled out .gov. Not here yet. How big of a file?
DPRIESD.
No, DPRIESTLEY. Like D Priest Lee, LEY.
There you go.
Yeah. My E gets dropped a lot.
I'll bet.
LEY. And it's Woodbury County, Iowa spelled out, .gov.
Things are slow in the courthouse basement.
Well, we should have a good connection, so. Still not here. Yeah. We do, but it would alert us that there's spam, then we have to go into another repository. So. They have the computer locked, so I can't put a thumb drive in it. Yeah, I can't get to the cords. Here it is. Okay, so
You need to accept this into the.
yeah,
Need a motion to accept this PowerPoint presentation into the record.
I will make a motion to accept the PowerPoint presentation as
Motion. Can I
presented.
get a second, please?
Second. Aye.
You can do it.
okay. Okay, just a moment.
So you want me to-
Yeah, if you turn those microphones on,
There we go.
it's gonna do that.
Whoops.
Okay, we're good.
All right. Who's controlling the slideshow?
I will be.
Go ahead. So it's gonna be sweet and short. So we've been operating since 2019. We have about 25 megawatts of active operations across Iowa. Grundy Center, we have about 6.5 megawatts developed in 2019, and then an additional 6.6 megawatts in the pipeline for 2024. So we're currently expanding. Consumers Energy is still in the same area. It's 5 megawatts in 2022 with an additional 2.5 in the pipeline for 2024. Osceola County, I got 5 megawatts developed in 2022. Woodbury County, we have 4.8 developed in 2023. That was the one you previously spoke about. And we have a Midland Cooperative 8 megawatts developed in 2024 and an additional 8 megawatts in the pipeline for 2024 as well. So what if the electric grid could increase revenue, upgrade infrastructure without a CapEx, lower rates across the board, use more renewable energy, and add higher paying tech jobs to the community? that's essentially what we're going to do. So this is some pictures of two of our sites. The one on the right-hand side is the current site in Woodbury County. The one on the left-hand side is another site that we have in central Iowa. You can see on the right-hand picture the distance from the substation in the background. So these are all air-cooled. We do have plans to possibly go to hydro-cooled, same footprint as these sites. The added addition is it's a lot quieter. So they are not loud in the first place. They're directional, and we'll get to that in a couple. So this is site layout. As you can see, it's kind of offset a little bit. That's for a couple reasons. One of the reasons would be for land access, to give more agricultural access to the land so they can bring in their planter and combine around the site. I spoke with some of the site owners, and this was the design we came up with, both of us together. That way we didn't have to use as much agricultural land as possible. Also, you'll notice that they're all in one row. That provides us with a way to direct the sound away from places. So the sound is only one direction. So we just basically have the string of pods, is what we would call them, across the top. We have some storage containers on site, a porta potty, a little parking lot, and then a trailer, office work trailer. So these are the owners. The two at the bottom are the two landowners. The one at the top is the farthest away. But if you look at the direction that we put that sound, it's going to be going away from them, strategically. So I've been through this quite a few times, and easiest way to talk about the sound as a decibel level is our conversation that we're having right now is probably around 60 decibels, probably higher if I were to speak louder. That being said, none of our sites go over 45. Some of our sites we typically used wind power for the sites. And so we adopt what they had into the zoning for that, for the sound decibels. And most of it, the wording that we have come across usually just relates to it needs to be away from any dwelling, like churches, nursing homes, that type of thing. And the sound level should be 60 decibels or below, or at the property line from there. So we're well below that. This is just a topography of the site. You can see the substation there and the way that we wanted to present it. So just so you guys get an idea of what the land looked like. The project is a minimum of 10 years. Like I said, we are in talks of going with a hydro facility instead of an air-cooled facility. If we do that, it could last even longer. So it's a minimum of 10 years. With the potential to decrease cost of service for cooperative members while increasing the payments to the members. So the impact on the community for the site will support 2 full-time technicians, making an average $27 an hour. Technicians will receive healthcare benefits, gym memberships, company housing, and me as their boss. So I had to throw that one in there. Contractors, we like to bring in the local contractors. That's just kind of how we're built, and it's a lot easier dealing with the local than bringing in our own team to do it. County sales tax on energy, 1%. So we're going to get charged probably 1% sales tax, around $12K a year. This is the important one. So the site is a demand site. So how we talk about that is these are all different ways of energy demand responses. Whether you have in the middle one where the sun is at, it's distributed energy resources. That means when we're going to turn your air conditioner off, the power would bring that down in times of congestion or high peak power. Another one would be planting trees to make it cooler, to make things more efficient. What we focus on is the demand response, the DR. At that time, we can bring down the power level pretty quickly and give it back to the grid. If you want to go to the next slide. So this is kind of what we're talking about here. With all demand responses, you have three different things. You have human behavior, physics, and economics. Pretty straightforward. And then on the other side, you'll see that we have it's possible or practical, actionable. We like to believe that we are all three of those. So for instance, if we have a large load and the power company needs to get that load back, we can turn our systems off in a matter of minutes and give that energy back to them in a time of need. So this is another graph of that. You can see in the peak in that orange and red, that's where we start to see that, and we can give it back to lower the cost for it. And usually power is pretty high at that time too, so higher cost. Easy way to think about it is we're a battery. We store the energy, and when you guys need it, we turn it off and give it back to you. That's the easy way to look at it. That's the end of the slide. This is some pictures of one of our teams in our Iowa location. So just thought that would give you a little bit of background about it, and especially with the demand response part of it.
First one.
Of the counties listed on that. Of the counties listed on there, Woodbury County, if this was approved, you'd have 2. What would that number be then?
It depends on what is it. So be about 6 megawatts
Added
Somewhere.
to it, or
added to it. So it'd be another additional 6 megawatts to the grid. So that at that time, the utilities would have to upgrade the grid, which in turn brings everything down.
so when I read through this data processing, what does that mean? What's the business plan? What does it actually do?
So we process large amounts of data. The data is a mining operation, so that's where the data is coming from. The transactions are held there, and there's just data processing in and out. So data center.
What's that?
It's a data center.
Who are your customers?
Anyone?
Like banks or?
What's that?
Banks, that type of thing?
Anybody that would be looking to invest in that, or in that space could participate. It's anybody from you or I to larger investors that we would want to fill the location with servers.
I wasn't here last year when this other one was approved. Is this crypto mining?
Correct.
Okay. Have you had conversations with the closest neighbor to the north?
I haven't personally. I know that the landowners have, and so that's about all I know. I've met the landowners once when I was here on site last month. So
Did they receive a notice, Daniel?
Yes,
No return?
nothing yet.
Was that Sadler or was that Ashley? Who's
To the north was a non-farm owner resident.
The neighbor to the north, I believe, is part of the Ashley family. I'll look it up. We'll pull it up here.
True.
from my understanding, the two on the road are the Ashley family, and the other one is not. That was my understanding.
I have to get a confirmation on that.
So I'm looking at the map right here too, and I'm seeing my first idea is that logically it should be square. But I understand that you're doing this primarily because of the noise.
Primarily, it's two things: to directionally move the noise,
Okay,
and the other is if we put it square, how is the planter going to get in and out of there?
okay.
So that was kind of our thought process. That Tony and I talked about it, and that it was his idea, and I had never thought of it before. And we're like, that's really good. So some of our other sites we have done where instead of a long string of pods, they are more like this
Mhm.
in kitty corner. We like the long string due to winds, drifting, snow, that type of thing. It helps a lot with that, and just cools better.
So are you gonna farm in between the things that I'm looking at here? You're farming in between here? or
No,
we're
that is
farming in-
the site. What you're
Because
seeing is the square,
that-
correct?
That looks like the tricky part to me.
Yes, that's why they left that room in there, because the way he explained it to me is you can get the combine in there, right? But how do you get the planter in and then back out the planter? That was the big part of it.
Well, and then go turn around and try to hit it again to get
Yep,
it
so now
all.
they'll be able to go
Okay.
that way.
Okay, you're the farmer. I mean, I watched my son do this, so it's like he'd have a fit with this.
Yeah. Well, the good news is the land is Tony's, the
Yeah,
Ashley family, and
exactly.
so we worked with them to come up with this solution so they
plan.
could get, yeah,
Right,
and they were okay with it.
right.
They were the ones who brought it up.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, the property owner directly to the north, it looks like is Kendall and Lisa Ashley
How about to the south?
to the south. This one over here is Cheryl. And down here, let's see, is it this one you're saying?
No, the one up to your northeast, right?
Over here? Sadler.
There. Okay. So really, they're the closest, probably.
And if we go into the packet, just for the record, we typically in our packet show you the,
Yeah.
off of the certified abstractors listing, who was selected to get the letter under regulatory.
Couple Sadler and couple.
It was- Yeah. It was Sadler's and Ashley's, and these would be the folks. And as of right now, and they could always make comments up until the Board of
Sure.
Adjustment sees us too, so.
Right.
When will you make the decision on the cooling system?
Good question. The cooling system will be decided on based upon clients. So if we don't have clients to put in a hydro-cooled facility, we're not going to use. Does that make sense? So, more than likely though, it will be.
So when you're saying hydro, then are you drilling a well to cool these or how does that
No,
work?
so if you look at how the pods were structured before, basically a hydro facility is like two containers. One is all of the pumps and fluid and heating elements and cooling elements, and the other one contains all the servers.
Strictly H2O.
There is some H2O, or there's lots of different ways, but typically it's an H2O. Sometimes they mix it with a little bit of mineral oil. So. But it'll be our first hydro facility, so we're trying to see how hydro is going to work in the winter. So,
So that would eliminate fans.
correct.
Like antifreeze.
What's that?
Sounds like antifreeze necessary in the winter.
no, No
Okay.
antifreeze.
Had to ask.
And just for the record, I would love to get rid of the fans.
Well, we don't have any additional questions or comments. You go, ready to go into closed session? Okay, need a motion,
Motion to close.
public hearing, okay. I need a second.
I'll second that.
Okay. Push your button, Barb. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Go, closing the public hearing.
Aye.
Okay. Now. Anything else? Any additional questions, information, concerns?
Yeah. I'm open to questions.
I would like to go see the other site myself.
Or-
I've never seen one in operation.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a possibility.
I wouldn't see why not. I could run it by my boss just to make sure, but I would assume.
But if
so.
everyone else is ready to go, and maybe even afterwards for future.
Yeah,
Checking it.
yeah,
out.
I mean, it's,
Because then you always hear of the. You're always hearing of the noise complaints. Is typically what you hear. And so I just wanted to hear it firsthand of how loud it is. And that's why I had the question about the cooling system.
so, let me say this. So some of our older designs, they use a belt-driven fan model. Okay, so you have a motor and then a fan, and there is a belt that goes in between it. The next newer style is a direct drive fan, so that the other fan has a metal blade on it and it has 5 wings on it, and it can be a little bit louder. It's not like ridiculous, but it's the servers are louder than the fans. That's the biggest part. That's what you're hearing. It's not the fans. The newer pods, not the Hydro ones, they have a direct drive fan with 3 blades, and it's more of a fiberglass blade. They're quieter. So it still creates noise, but it's nothing. I've lived in Iowa all my life, and it's very similar to a grain dryer.
You mentioned before that your other sites are mostly wind generated power. This one is not, correct? I mean, you have no plans to add solar, add wind.
So most of the electricity, I believe, does your county use wind?
Mm-mm.
There's no wind? Okay, so our central Iowa ones are off of wind. And that's what we use mainly there. We also have one up in by Spirit Lake area that is full of wind. But we don't have any plans to add solar or anything like that. Not at this time. We would love to, but
Okay,
My only comment is the last couple of years, as I mentioned before, all of the farmers, all of the ag people complaining about losing ag land to non-ag business to the point where we're talking about CSR numbers and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And here's a farmer that's doing that.
using productive
Yeah,
land.
and I just want to be consistent. We said no to a bunch of solar stuff. Just consistency is what I'm looking for.
Mhm. I think, like Dan said, we've already set precedents. We've done this once already. I mean, might have unique situations or something other than what was similar in the last one. That's what's unique about a conditional use permit. That it can be totally different.
Right, and so you have 2 acres here, 2 acres there, 2 acres, and it just keeps going and going, and then where are you at is what I'm
Mhm.
getting at.
Mhm.
What was, I don't even know the acreage for this. Does it say on there?
Okay, it's
1.5.
1.5. Most of them are like a half, 1.5, something like that.
1.5.
One more question. Is that okay?
You're good.
You'd mentioned earlier on too, that you're able to shut the systems down and provide that power back to the grid, but I'm assuming your investors don't want that, right? They want this operating 24/7, 365 days a year. So how have you handled that? Like this current site that you have in Woodbury County, how many times have you actually shut it down to provide power back to the grid?
5 to 10% of the time, we will be load shedding. Is what we call it, load shedding. That's our technical term for it. But it is a demand response program. So we are linked up with the utility companies, watching the grids, watching when peak is going to hit, and we can kind of control that on our end too. So we don't have to shut down the whole site. We can pull down some of it to keep it below peak.
Is that provider that you use in Woodbury, is that REC or Mid-American?
Whatever it said on there. It's,
This one is the other one. By Winnevegas?
yes, yeah,
Same.
with the Mid-American,
Okay.
yeah.
I believe it may have been REC.
I think.
Was it?
I'd have to go back.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
I know the other one is, right?
Because I know REC wrote them a letter of support for
Okay.
that
Okay.
last time.
Okay.
Typically, the process is we go in and once we get the okay, the utility has to upgrade their equipment. So we can connect our equipment, which makes the grid resiliency improved. So over time, it's a good thing. It's gotta have to happen eventually. But we're just getting a jump start on it with ours. And like I said, easiest way to think about the demand response thing is we're a giant battery. So we have all this power, nobody's using it, and essentially we're just giving it back. So laws of physics, once you create power, you can't destroy it.
Yeah, that's a NIPCO
Yeah.
from last time. It's on Calhoun Avenue. It's actually on your screen in front of you.
That one's
Okay.
actually, yep, it's right there behind the substation.
So I
What's the closest house?
believe it's to there was one here. That might be that's a Burlette. That was the family associated with the applicant, at least the Burlettes.
Have you received any complaints on that? Dean?
We have not as of yet. There's a house to the north, but that's a few quarters away.
Still thinking, are we ready for a motion?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Are we still thinking? Are we ready for a motion?
More questions?
I like questions.
No more questions? I'd entertain a motion.
I will make a motion. Make a motion. I believe I will. Let me try this. Thank you. I will make a motion to recommend approval to the Board of Adjustment with the condition that the applicants and the property owners mitigate noise generated from the facility and provide adequate security for the facility, including the use of fencing and lighting.
Basically was our same motion. It's before. Anything I don't see in here is the letter from the utility company either. but
Was that a motion from before too, from the other?
I think it was.
From last year?
Yeah.
It'd be different. I don't believe the fencing and that stuff was part of it last year.
Because I know we do have fencing there and it is have barbed wire across the top, just like the power or the substation does too. And then we lock that gate at night when we leave.
I think last time it was just a recommendation to approve. So,
It's been kind of standard across the board. when we-
Pretty much let the Board of Adjustment decide any of the
yeah.
parameters.
Yeah, and just kind of for the record, of course, the Board of Adjustment's going to receive your recommendation, and with it being more so advertised as the public hearing, they'll be able to collect more information if the neighbors happen to come
Okay.
as well. So,
Okay.
What are the hours that it's staffed?
Typically 8 to 5,
7 days?
5 days a week, Monday through Friday.
No, not yet.
I'll second.
I have a motion. Now I have a second.
okay,
Any further discussion?
yeah, now we're in discussion,
Yeah,
that's all.
Yeah, any further discussion at this point? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed, same sign. Okay, sounds like motion carried.
4,
4,
okay.
okay,
Thank
there you go.
And again, the Board of Adjustment meets on August 5th at 6:00 PM. Yeah, they're an hour later.
Mhm. Okay, thank you. All right, next item on the agenda. We have a packed house for this one. Nuclear energy review of zoning or regulations, direction from the Board of Supervisors, information discussion, item summary. Dan, do you want to read the information into the record, please?
Yes, page 41 of your packet. You will see, we're going to try to approach this a little bit different, than we did with the solar, as far as I think we sort of went straight to a public hearing. And, so kind of what, tonight's information item is to kind of share with you some, general literature on what's been going on, as far as initiatives for, nuclear energy. And what the Board of Supervisors did, Supervisor Raddick had the agenda item, and all 5 supervisors voted to direct the commission to explore nuclear energy as a potential option as far as making Woodbury County possibly available, or some zoning districts available for potential nuclear in the future. Now, nuclear is something that is heavily regulated at the federal level. They even have the international IAEA and different other ways of looking at nuclear. It's a very consequential technology. There's different types, the large scale versus the more smaller modular reactors, and a series of literature out there. We've got a lot of stakeholders in this county, landowners, business owners, residents, farmers, etc. And it's very imperative that we collect their input, like we did last time, across the board. And so there's a lot of things to brainstorm about who we really need to talk to, so that we can collect the highest level of comments as possible to see if this is something that we would like to have as part of the energy package in Woodbury County. Supervisor Raddick had said before the Board of Supervisors that we've explored wind, we've explored solar, we've come to the different conclusions on both of them. And as nuclear being another option for the menu, they want us to see what the potential could be. In kind of my initial research, there's not a lot of local level zoning as far as nuclear energy, but there is significant levels of federal thresholds that you would have to go through, as well as state thresholds on designations on whether we want to have them available in the communities. And as you all know from many of your experiences with our land use summary table, we have a lot of line items in there that do not have ordinances tied to them. You have a borrow pit. You bring your conditional use permit app to the zoning commission and to the Board of Adjustment, similar to what was discussed with the previous agenda item. And without a specific ordinance, you're looking again at if something fits within the neighborhood. within the criteria. Our criteria is very broad in nature. We know, we've had a significant debate about pipelines in this community for the last several years. And I've mentioned several times in public meetings, of course, they're debating pipelines at the state utilities board level, the federal level. But one thing remains, there is a provision in the zoning ordinance called conditional use permit pipeline, which means that technically an applicant would have to bring a pipeline application or somebody desiring to put one in to the zoning commission and to the Board of Adjustment to do it, make a decision on whether that's appropriate or not. So at the bare minimum, we could decide to maybe consider entering a line item into the land use summary table that recognizes nuclear and puts it in a zoning district such as industrial. There's my initial research tends to find that you're going to probably need them to be near some water sources, possibly for the coolant. And so the way Woodbury is designed, that right away that kind of puts maybe industrial in there as a possible option. When we went through the solar debate and we listened to the farmers and the different landowners, it was touched on a little bit here tonight about agricultural preservation. It's important to understand the elements of the previous debates and know that we got to incorporate the opportunity to visit with us through this process and hear what the public has to say as far as where we put these. With that said, so far to me, it's definitely pointing to industrial, general industrial with what our utilities section kind of points to. So the supervisors are looking to us, all of us, to research if there's a higher threshold of local zoning or as far as creating an ordinance. And what I've seen so far and talking to some of the other jurisdictions, we have this group called COZO. They just held the conference here back in May. We kind of have a message board where we bounce ideas across each other for zoning administrators. And what I've found initially is they've said, well, we do conditional uses if we're to have it in our community. So we do have the infrastructure in this ordinance as far as putting the C in there for general industrial and having the expectation that they go through all the protocols. Talking with some folks across the board, we're going to have to talk to various stakeholders across the board, not only our property owners. I think it's probably imperative, Mid-American Energy, and of course the city, talk to us about some of these things. And for the record, I shared a phone call with Sam Wagner over at Mid-American as this kind of got onto the agenda and kind of got into the public discourse and discussed that this is likely going to come up. And one of the things that he first said is, you're going to be all the participants. He did the typical planner thing where you want them at the table, you want other energy companies possibly at the table, you want the community leaders at the table, and the residents, because nuclear is a big word. It's an impact on lifestyle in some respects and how you feel within your respective communities. So I would have to say that we'll want to ease into this and kind of look through the research, look through the articles. It's going to take both looking at the literature and it's going to take looking at what our communities have to say about it. As far as industrial areas, we know the folks at Salix, Sloan, and those areas between 29 and the river are going to have a huge say in the impact down there. So we'll have to have them all included. And so I would have to say that I'll be spending the next several weeks trying to find people and beg them to comment so that we can be proactive. And of course, draw the net that hopefully people will come in and show up and bring things to our attention. So I would have to say that we'll probably want to maybe do a field trip at some point, maybe do one of the, like we did in Moville, maybe host a public hearing or at least a listening session, something, maybe a work session down in maybe Salix down there if we work with the community down there. But I think we'll probably want to ease into it before we hold the very first public hearing, then kind of schedule what we want to do for public hearings and see what we want for work sessions. But with that said, I think that the basis is we do have infrastructure in our ordinance as far as adding a line and putting a C in there at bare minimum. And I think it's imperative to hear the public out on that. In my conversation with Sam, nuclear is not a, oh, here's an application, we're going to get it done in 3 months. It's not. It's multi-year. It could be 15 years, even thinking about it. Well, all the threshold that the federal puts the applicant through, the energy companies through, these would be the bigger companies that come in, like your Mid-Americans or your NextEras or those type of companies that are going to grab onto that application. It's probably very unlikely that just your average citizen is going to ask to put a nuclear reactor on their farm. So we know that it's going to be a very intricate, heavy top down from the federal. And so what the supervisors are doing is they're asking us to look at it and see whether or not how the public feels about it. And if the public is okay with it and maybe being a possible industrial asset, then if we were to put the C in there, it would be a signal to developers and other agencies that maybe Woodbury County could possibly be a landing spot for chasing a nuclear project. And what we mean by that is laying out the infrastructure so that planners and other areas have an environment where they could possibly locate those type of projects. And so nuclear is different. It's a different footprint. It's not going to take up the level of acres that solar would. It's not going to take up the landscape as far as the wind, as far as how many parcels they're spread out and from the horizon. It would be more so in an area kind of similar to what our coal plants are in terms of taking a footprint down there. And there is the concern about the coal. We heard it in the solar debate about the coal going offline and being turned offline at some point. And I think that that's one of the things that kind of brought the 5 supervisors to vote 5-0 to send this to us as far as looking at, do we want Woodbury County to possibly be an environment? So I would probably suggest that we have another agenda item and then next month set up a set of what you would expect for some public hearings. And I would suggest public hearing out in the field and probably a couple here as well. So that's my general comments on this information.
Hey, anybody got any questions or comments or thoughts? How you want to go about?
I'm open to hearing ideas from the public and the other entities involved.
Okay, so we're talking about it. This is another info session in August. On the August agenda.
Yeah, I'm hoping to bring you more materials. You'll notice that most of the materials here were quite introductory as far as those options available. We haven't been able to really zero in on actually local ordinances. So I think that either we look at the C opportunity or we look at other aspects. I haven't seen a setback standard so much. We've seen a few things. I know Don and I both kind of looked a bit in the research. She looked quite a bit, and I think you came across a number at some point, didn't you, Don? We'll have to look, but yeah. So there's general ideas there, but the federal is going to have really stringent regulations on
Mhm.
even locating one beyond us.
Right.
So if we become tighter than federal, it's gonna be really kind of robust as far as where you cite them. And the kind of the challenge is with, when you put the C in there, the C allows the latitude, like you all been doing all along and looking to see whether the area fits or not. But I'm kind of afraid, like with telecommunication towers, those are pretty much out of our hands. We have the C in there. They bring them to us. They tell us that they're pretty much looking at longitude and latitude through the FCC, and they have it mapped down right to that point before they come to us. And here we're talking to them about setbacks. And so they have to come and look at our ordinance and see what our setback requirements are. But by the time they bring that proposal to the county, they pretty much have it all set. And then under Iowa Code 8C, we're not allowed to ask anything about how it affects, environmental based issues, health or safety or those type of regulations. So we're basically just down to setbacks. And so I'm really thinking that it's probably going to be more along the lines of the telecommunication towers, where they have so much federal code and so much state code that we're going to just have enough to have them politely file a conditional use permit
Go through the
for us.
process.
So
Mhm.
we'll have to look at that and get some concrete information to that. And I don't want to speculate on it.
Okay.
So that's really all I got at this point, but I think I'll, with your permission, put another agenda item, and maybe we can have it be a little bit more like a work session,
Okay.
but kind of in that realm where we can maybe talk about or what we come up with. So maybe if we all do a little bit of homework, but I'll do the homework
Heavy
on what
lifting.
on finding some things. But
Okay.
if there's some things that you all find and can bring to the table, or if you find a good article, please email me.
Yeah, you
And,
bet.
um, and I'll try to kind of create a collection of information, then make it available to everybody.
Okay.
So yeah,
So August it will be informational again. Won't be a public hearing.
we could kind of call it an informational work session.
Okay. Works for me. Does that work for you? Okay. Barb, you still down there? Okay, just making sure. You're a long ways away. Hey, are we ready to move on to
Yeah.
the next one then? Okay. Home occupation sign zoning regulation review information discussion items summary. Dan, you want to read that information into the record, please?
Yes, this is a continuation. We had the citizen up here, Mr. Walker, at last month's meeting, discussing the 100 square foot sign that was put on his property. And so we discussed the possibility of looking at our existing zoning regulations and our ordinance as far as under home occupation use. We've got the 25 square foot sign requirement. And that would apply to if somebody's doing some business in their suburban residential house, a 10,000 square foot lot versus a agricultural preservation district, which would be at minimum 2-acre lots. And so I put this on the agenda beginning on page 76, just to highlight what our zoning regulations are for the signs. There is no proposal in here at this point, but beginning on page 77, you will see how our signs are divided into a couple categories where it says an on-premise sign. An on-premise sign is an accessory use to the property. In home occupation, somebody is trying to use their home in some respect to glean some economic advantages. In other words, make money at your house for your business. And so moving to the next page, you'll see our home occupation requirements, and you'll see where number 5 highlights the 25 square foot in area. Now, so basically somebody's following through these home occupation requirements. Our home occupation requirements are designed to be in a way that you don't have to come to the county to run your business, but you have to fall within those guidelines. In other words, if you're running a business, have it out there in a way that you can drive by. It retains the residential characteristics as much as possible for the neighbors. You don't harm them with, extra noise or extra, just activity going on. And so you'll see that it kind of keeps them locked in unless they outgrow them. And when you outgrow them, typically what happens, we get a complaint and we look at the zoning district and we say, looks like your attempted activity there is not allowed in AP because it actually has a 2 hyphen lines in there. But you also live on the property and you are eligible to meet home occupation if you can tailor it back into those home occupation guidelines. Now, 25 square foot. The general issue is we looked at some jurisdictions and they range. I think generally Woodbury's 25 is, pretty reasonable of what's out there. Some have been 35, some have been.
Ooh,
We'll get a list if we research it further,
I already
But-
got research.
but we'll look into it so we can kind of do some comparison. But what was kind of brought up last meeting is, do we keep the 25 in there as an allowed situation for the landowners? And if somebody would want to go higher than that, could we possibly set up a conditional use type of scenario where it's reviewed by the neighborhood under the premise that we have a lot of rural land. We have a lot of land that's far from things where there's more space in between homes and houses where somebody could come in and have a larger sign, some type of range that you could ask the zoning commission board of adjustment to review and see if the characteristics of the sign may or may not be applicable to the neighborhood. So that's just kind of what was brought forward here. Now, if you move kind of forward in the packet, you'll see our signs, page 80. We have a bunch of signs that are exempt. I know that the gentleman last month was kind of talking about different signs, and I know he's had political signs out there, and political signs are fine. It's a form of free speech as far as expressing different viewpoints. And technically, the courts have been pretty citing on the landowners as far as the speech content on signs and things like that. But the counties and the local jurisdictions definitely have the authority to regulate, the basic characteristics of sizes and things that aren't interfering with the speech patterns of the various signs. And if you look at going on page 81, you'll see our grid of, we've got pylon signs, we've got ground signs, wall signs, window signs, projecting signs, all are different. And so we could have an opportunity to take this up and just simply review our sign policy as far as either home occupation or conditional use, and kind of go through a process just to review. We may come up with the same numbers that we have, or might find a reason that we could have an opportunity to evaluate signs on a case-by-case basis. And so just simply want to put that out there and see what your thoughts are. It's really just a continuation of what was kind of said last month, but I'm definitely interested in what you have to say as far as wanting to take this up and maybe engaging the public to see how the public would feel, maybe through a future public hearing. But we would kind of generally need to look at various communities, and I know the chair has looked at some of those already and has some numbers, but as staff, we'd like to research that too. So just your thoughts. That's all I got. So.
Anybody?
I'm open to reviewing it. I'm not a big fan of opening the code and changing the code just for one person that got caught putting up an illegal sign. But if the intent is to look at the entire section to determine, hey, is it relevant? Is there updates that can be made? I'm open to that. Again, just not opening to changing something for someone that got caught.
So what I found, because automatically this got me up in arms when I'm figuring out the sign that we allow as a 4x6 sign, kind of an odd sign. If you're using a sheet of plywood, it's 4x8, but 4x6 is okay, because I looked into Johnson County, and what I did is I tried to find counties that had the same population area as we did, and possibly the same size city that Sioux City might have, but it's not included. So Johnson County with 157, 528, which is the highest population that I used, only allows 6 or 8 square feet. That's 4 square feet per side. So we're substantially higher than them. Story County has 98,566 people. They have the same thing. It's only 4 square feet. Dallas County has 111,092 people population. They only allow 2 square feet. Blackhawk County, 130,471. I couldn't find any kind of notification on sign. Dubuque County, 98,877 population is 6,000 or 6 square feet, and none of them allow lighting.
Is that for home?
Yeah, it is.
That's for home occupation,
Yep,
home.
home occupations. Yep. I went through their zoning ordinances and found what the requirements were. So I'd say we're rather generous for a county our size. Just me.
Good work.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that work.
I was feeling feisty this afternoon.
I think along the lines of what Jeff said, if we maybe look at just a general review, just bring some further data back
Mhm.
as far as, of course, incorporate what you have in there.
Okay.
We can at least review it.
Comparable.
Yeah.
I want comparable counties. I don't want Polk County.
Did
We're not
you look
below.
at Polk County?
No, I did not.
Okay.
They're too big and I don't think they're a good comp.
Okay.
Sorry. It's just me.
Not to put you on the spot, Jeff, but do you kind of recall how Sioux City handles the HOMOC?
1 square.
One.
Oh. Wow. I can't imagine having a 4x6 in somebody's front lawn.
But I guess comparing comps is, I guess I would look at an urban area different than. I would have to look at an urban setting versus a rural setting, whereas that 1 or 2 square foot or even 4 square foot may not be relevant on a 10-acre rural parcel. So I still think we're
But the odds
very
are,
generous.
yeah, but the odds are the sign's gonna be out in their front yard.
Yeah.
So, I mean, regardless of how big it is and how much land they are, it's gonna be in their front.
Yeah,
yard.
Sioux City is 1 square foot and it has to be attached to the face of the building. No freestanding.
Okay, interesting.
Do we have anything on that? If it's attached to the building or freestanding?
If you go back into the tables there, you'll see where it, page 81, where it goes, allowed, like each category, like ground signs, a ground sign, you're allowed at 25 square foot. And then you go to the next one, like building sign, you got the home occupation, 25 square foot. Then they kind of divide it out by district. Then window sign, it looks like there's none for home occ. Projecting signs, none. And so your home occupation, you're basically dealing with a wall sign, a ground sign
It's the same size.
at the 25 square foot.
Maybe they need to decrease them.
Well,
Well,
if
we talked
yeah.
about too, I mean, in an electronic age, how many people use signs and how many people use signs to get their business to come to their house already? I mean, Facebook Marketplace, Etsy, you know, nobody wants them to come to their place anymore. They're usually electronic
And
marketing.
his main gripe was delivery vehicles, knowing where his business was.
Everybody has GPS on their phones,
Yeah. But I
their
don't,
trucks.
it's roofing and I don't see a lot of people going there and asking.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
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 But even so, I mean, it's modern technology almost has eliminated the need for science.
And it's fair to look at, you know, the broad scope as
Sure.
far as larger or smaller. I mean,
Mhm.
we can look at the big picture as
just
far as
Trying to make more homework for us. That's your job, right?
busy times, busy times.
Right, right.
So we can maybe bring that back as another agenda item.
Informational.
Informational.
Okay, all right. Is everybody good on that one? Should we move on? Public comments on matters not on the agenda. We still don't have anybody on the phone and no one in the room.
I don't believe so. It's still empty on the phone.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to staff update.
Okay, we had a flood in June. And it was quite significant to get the presidential declaration. July 3rd, I went out to the Correctionville meeting, and everybody out there is just trying to get their lives back in order after a flood. And we learned right away about the consequences and the significance of federalism and intergovernmental regulations. And sometimes we feel there's a little bit of cohesive federalism or forced federalism, or the federal government kind of telling us to do things to be in good compliance with the NFIP. But what I'm getting at is each jurisdiction controls their own floodplain regulations. And when FEMA comes out, they try to reach out to each jurisdiction individually. I'm sure they've been over to Sioux City. They've met with me. They've met with Correctionville. DNR also engages with all the staff as well. And the issue is we've told the public that before you can start repairing your house or your structures, you have to file a floodplain development permit for the repair to determine a level of substantial damage. And substantial damage is the term FEMA uses to try to kind of balance out and mitigate future problems with the floodplain. And so if a structure had incurred more than 50% of the value, they use market value. I've been advised by DNR to use the assessed dwelling value. If you go into the market value, it's kind of a loaded subject on as far as what the assessor is assessing. I've heard different numbers where the assessor could be around 93% from the market value. And so it gets a bit messy as far as that overall calculation. So what the DNR and FEMA both expect of the local level is to identify the structures that have been inundated and try to find substantial damage structures. If they are substantial damage, unfortunately, the burden is on the property owner to prove their level of damage by some type of contractor's assessment that lays out the value of all the goods and also the value of the services and the labor and the overhead costs and the profit. So everything that goes into it to make the house back to where it was would be ran up against the value. So it would be, are they more than 50% in repair or not more? If it goes over 50%, then they have to adhere to the floodplain regulations, which are flood proofing and elevating 1 foot above the base flood elevation. So that means they have to identify the BFE and basically lift the house up, lift the structure up. It also puts the property owner at a decision on do they want to rebuild or not. And so that's kind of FEMA's way of creating a mitigation type of scenario. I try to stay in touch with the Michael Montino, the emergency manager, because they've done a lot on working their way down the Highway 31 corridor, because that's much where the floods had taken place. I've been up and down that road a lot in the last few weeks to identify things. But at this point, it looks like, fortunately for unincorporated, we've had about 4 houses that I would suspect that had some type of water. Of the 4, I'm pretty sure that 2 of them are below the 50% threshold. So when they're below the 50% threshold, they can move about their business as far as cleaning it up and going on with the repairs and everything, just as long as they submit the data. I'm still working with DNR on a couple other ones that I'm concerned about, so we're trying to stay engaged. But the media has interviewed us a few times, kind of following supervisor meetings. And one of the things that I find the most challenging is that we're all different jurisdictions. So if something comes out of Sioux City or something comes out of Correctionville or the county, we're trying to be as consistent as possible when we're talking about what these things are. They're consistent on what needs to be done, but there can definitely be confusion on each jurisdiction, even with our smaller towns. I've talked with the clerk over at Correctionville quite a bit because it's quite an endeavor for them. They're going through the headache because Correctionville, you just can't imagine what they're going through. So many houses and red tagging different places. And on top of it, they've kind of been engaged with FEMA and the DNR and getting up to par on what are the expectations for the floodplain development permit. On top of everything, I'm trying to find out, is there funding available? Is there resources? So we're just trying our best to convey those messages to the public and link them up. And I think Montino has done a fabulous job as far as rallying the public even through the disaster and coordinating with FEMA and everything. And so zoning is kind of up on the, the back end of it as far, we've monitored the disaster and everything, but now it's just imperative that we, follow the regs, keep our NFIP in good shape, and hopefully move forward and get everybody's lives back in line. But the ones that I've talked to, it's really devastating when you hear that story just directly on what it does, because nothing is more sacred than one's own home, their own living space. And we feel that for sure.
Would have been a tough time for sure.
Yeah. But as far as, it's when you say a number, like we're happy that it was just 4, but 4, that's still 4 people's lives.
Right. 4 people, 4 families.
4 families.
Yeah, it extends way past the people affected.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, the other update, I said it a few times, the Board of Adjustment will be meeting, to fulfill the review of the conditional use, and we'll send the subdivision over to the Board of Supervisors, and I'll ask the chair to sign those kind of letters that we send to the boards to tell them that these actions have been taken. And that's, if I'm just trying to think of more stuff. If I can't, we'll send an email. So
That works.
okay, well,
Communicate.
that's all I got. So.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item number 8, commissioner comments or inquiries. Everybody's quiet or shaking their head.
I do want to say something to Corey.
Okay.
I meant to say in my motion, I do appreciate what you said about the taking into account what everybody feels about using our agricultural land for industrial uses. I do feel like we need to stay on the same level.
That's all we've heard for 2 years.
Yes.
Be vigilant.
I mean, the number of farmers that stood up right there and says it's AP. And then a farmer.
This is much smaller scale. I understand
Yeah,
that,
but
but
you put, now
but
we've
we're
got 2.
putting-
We had 0, now we have 2.
right.
You never
Right.
know. You don't know what the trend or the new technology or what's gonna come down the line. If you would have said, if I would have said to you 10 years ago, hey, we're gonna have some data mining in Woodbury County, you'd say, what? Now there's data mining, and now we have not 0, not 1, but we have 2. And it's on AP. I'm just saying.
Based
We're
on
seeing
the
a trend.
and based on the trajectory of those 2, I think the 2 things in common, if we're trying to find a common denominator, is location and proximity to residences. And I think that we're gonna have to really carefully scrutinize in the future if they kind of get closer to housing. And I think that was kind of reflected in the meeting tonight.
But then
and
that limits,
Distances.
it limits, who's gonna wanna build, you know, if you get a chunk of land near it.
But yeah, when you get closer, to the fringes or major development areas or suburban residential or those things, we'll definitely have to keep an eye out on the areas.
And do we think about a limit, a number of acres that could be used for this in the whole county? I mean, is that a consideration?
Before,
Not for this.
not
but
for this, but in
It
general. for
surely
the
was about
development.
solar. I mean, there was a number and some people thought that was way too high and some
Yeah.
people,
Yes. I think it's worth consideration and we should talk
Yeah.
about it at some point. Thank you for bringing that up.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Hey, you guys are all in favor. That's for motion to
motion to adjourn.
second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.
Hey, Chris.
Thank you very much, everyone.
See here. Stop this wording.